So we got the transmission assembly out here at my buddy's shop. Brought it in here, started taking it apart here a little bit. Got the belt pulley off as first thing. Kind of interesting, it's got a square shaft that drives it in the back of the transmission here. Put that down. See a little bit inside the final drives there. Still cold yet, all frosty, but I see a little bit more inside the transmission and differential here. It's the brake band. Looks pretty good so far. We haven't found nothing cringeworthy. This is what we started with. Take it all apart. Okay, so we got the belt pulley assembly off and taken apart. Rabbit bearing in there. So this, is on there, and that's your keeper. Holds it all together like that. There's a roll pin. Goes in there. So yeah, we can clean this whole thing up and get it, the rest of this apart, and get all that old grease cleaned out of there and move on to the next thing. So I got the steering gear off and the rear plate on the back of the transmission between the belt pulley. And then we took the transmission off. Whoops. It's all looking pretty good. And we've got you can see in the differential and stuff better now. Those gears and stuff in there look beautiful. They look like brand new. So this should be pretty easy cleanup. Spinner. Got the shifting fork all freed up and working. So there's the detent here. There's a check ball and spring underneath this in the 3 detents, forward, neutral, and reverse. Slides forward and back like that. Yeah, things look pretty good. So we got this idler gear off. I'm going to take this apart now too, because there's actually some play in both the oil slinger and the gear on the shaft. See what that's all about. So I got that sub-assembly apart. And there's definitely some wear on the keys and stuff, so I'll probably start by getting some new keys and see if that takes up the slop or not, and if not, we'll go from there. Okay, so we pulled the left side axle out. To do that, you pull, there's a pin through the axle with the cotter pin. I just pulled that cotter pin on that side. So now the pin comes out. And then this comes off, and then your whole axle can slide out. I'll do that here off camera so I don't mess up the Babbitt. Yeah, it's all Babbitt inside here. And there's a felt seal around the outside here to seal that axle off. And we started pulling out the rollers, the pinion rollers. And let's just, there's a big nut and bolt, or bolt rather, and washer, which holds those heads in place. And you take that off, and then these just, they're lightly pressed in there to hold the rollers. Okay, I want to do a little update on that wire loom holder deal. I was trying to figure out that part in my box that looked like the spout of an old gas can. So it was posted that it is part of it and it belongs on there, and then I found that one picture on the internet of one that has one. So I was looking through the parts book here and trying to figure out for sure, if it showed it, and sure enough it does. So to start with, that's your exhaust manifold, and there's two bosses on top of it that are tapped, that bracketry. So these brackets here, two of them mount to the top of the exhaust manifold, and then that is your wooden wire holders, two of them and the appropriate hardware that clamp to them. And then we'll go a couple more pages over. Here is that one I was talking about, looks like the spout, and then that's the little bracket around it that mounts it, and they call it a, let's see, 174, or, well, a conduit cable. So they call it a conduit cable, and then the conduit cable clamp. And, okay, so where do we mount that? Well, I was messaged with Dave, told me, it mounts to the frontmost boss on the manifold. Okay, I believe him. Just out of curiosity, I was looking through the pictures here then to see, and sure enough it shows right there the clamp mounting to the frontmost boss there, the number 2 cylinder. And then that's the wooden blocks with the hold the spark plug wires, and it goes down behind the intake manifold down to where your mag is. So it all makes perfect sense. When you see it coming behind the intake there, the metal. So I was like, oh, okay, there's another mystery solved. We also were looking, Dad was asking, well, where does that air cleaner mount to? We know approximately where it goes, up by the front of the engine there, but we wasn't sure which bolt. Well, that answers that question too. There's a hole in that front, big front casting. This is looking at it from the bottom. So that's where that mounts. So there's another puzzle piece figured out. I got to make a couple of corrections to previous videos I made. I know I said that I'd be making mistakes. Sure enough, I've already caught in a couple. The one when I was talking about governors, when we were looking at the parts up in the loft, I said that one with the pulley was probably the right one for this tractor. Well, I got that backwards. That's not the one for this tractor. That's probably the one for the parts, from the parts engine, that went through that tin cover that I also showed in the garage. Because if we go over to this book, some applications, which one was that in? It shows where there's a pulley that comes through the front cover, but the Allis is different. That has the big cast front cover. So basically I was right just backwards about it. The one with the pulley is the one from the different application. Let's see if I can find this picture now. I'll do this with one hand. Where is that? Oh, well, I'll get sidetracked here. Looking through, you know, remember when I was showing that old original head gasket? And it said it looked like it had 80 cents written on it, but that was hard to believe. Well, sure enough, cylinder head gasket. Way back in the day, it was 80 cents. So that might be older than the Hills head gasket. It's been kicking around for many, many years. Well, that's kind of funny. Oh, where is that picture? Unless it was in this manual. So I got two different manuals here. These are just Leroy engine manuals, not Allis specific, but it's the 2C 4-cylinder engine from the Leroy company, instruction manual. Which also brings me to another correction I got to make. You know, when I was talking about, you know, that this is a figure it out type of project and there's no instruction manuals and whatever, and then a little while later I referred to the instruction book. Well, yes and no. There's no real service manual, so to speak. You got the instruction book and parts price list that I was looking through there. So that just kind of gives you the basic how to run the tractor in whatever type of thing, the operation of it, but it doesn't really explain how to fix it or service it. Same with these instruction manuals, instruction book for the engine. It gives you, you know, adjustments and specs and stuff and how the oil works and that kind of stuff, but it doesn't give you a step-by-step of how to fix them or anything. Where was that? Interesting on the oil filter. I wonder if any of the Allises ever had an oil filter. As far as I know, they didn't. But I seen that in the book. It's like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder if a guy should think about adding one of them on there, just, you know, for peace of mind. You know, at least you're cleaning some of your oil as you run it. Well, I can't find that picture now that I was going to show you. Pretty sure I was looking at one of these manuals had a picture of oh, right there. Found it. So that's, you know, a different application, and it almost like a stationary, power unit engine. And you can see the pulley coming through the front cover that would have driven the fan blade in that application. So that's, you know, who knows, maybe that parts engine where I got some of the extra parts from was a power unit. It's very possible. Because like I said, they used these engines for a lot of different applications, but they're different. They're all a little bit different. Like you can see the intake and exhaust and everything, and the carburetor setup on this power unit engine is significantly different than the tractor engine, but they're all basically the same thing. So I just kind of wanted to show that, a little update on that. I thought that was kind of interesting.